Now, and on this DVD, we're gonna have, it's gonna be like a potpourri of all different kinds of opening for white or for black, not in any particular order, but you will see how can either side can come up with some ideas. And let's get in the bottom of it. What is wrong with some ideas we're gonna look, and what is good is some new ideas. We develop how the way of thinking. How should we think? How should we approach something that we have never seen before? Well, let's start with Pirc Defense. D4, knight f6, knight c3, g6. Well, there are several ways to play this position for white, and we choose knight f3, bishop g7, h3, castle, and bishop e3. Well, we extensively covered c6 variation where we play a4, and quickly to run through, I want to run you through some basic ideas of this particular variation for white. On c6 we go a4 for two different reasons. One, we stop black from playing b5, and the second, prepare for our knight in some position square on c4, which also stops b5. Now we go a4, and if black goes knight d7, we don't want to analyze it in details because we already have covered it. We go bishop e2, and when black goes e5, now we take, black takes, and we go knight to d2. There is nothing new here. This all been covered. What we want to do, we want to go knight c4 followed by queen d6. For example, queen c7, we will go knight c4, and if black goes rook d8, after queen d6, they have horrible position. And we had to do it, we had to play knight d2 before we castle, because otherwise, if we castle now, black is going to go queen c7, knight d2, rook d8, and after knight c4, they can go knight f8 and knight b6. We are not going to have queen d6 move. So that's why we play knight d2 first, and on queen c7, knight c4, and on rook d8, queen to d6, with a big advantage for white. This was thoroughly covered on our Pirc Defense DVD. So let's go back now and see why we are going through this again. Because black from time to time coming up with new ideas. And here is one new idea. What we had on a DVD covered, but now I want to suggest the improvement. Knight f6, knight c3, g6, knight f3, bishop g7, h3 as we played, castle, bishop e3, but here knight c6 move. What I recommended before is to play bishop e2, and after e5 just to take, black takes and go bishop c4, or queen takes d8, rook takes d8, and bishop to c4. Well, this position is tiny bit better for white, and it may not be as much of an advantage as we want it to. Well, here is the one idea, and there is an opening theory about it. It's not much an advantage here, but here is what I want to suggest. Bishop b5, a6. This is theory. Bishop takes c6, b takes c, and queen d2. Now let's talk about this position a little bit. We don't want to castle here short, because black is going to go knight d7 followed by c5, and black will have a relatively good position. So after knight d7, position is about equal. So we want to put back and play queen to d2. Now black goes rook b8, and we castle, and now black can play c5. Now when black plays c5, it's clear that we cannot take on c5, because black is almost winning after knight takes e4. You see, if knight takes e4, bishop takes b2 check, king b1, bishop c3, black is winning. So what do we do in this position? Let's assess this position. This is typical position with castling on the opposite sides of the board. What we have to do, both sides have to attack opponent's king. We go bishop h6. After bishop h6, black will take on d4, and we will take back on d4. Now we have an idea of going knight c6. I have to mention that bishop d7 should be played, and the reason why it should be played, because knight c6 has to be stopped, and I don't think black will want to play bishop b7, blocking their own rook. So a rook on b8. I don't think they want to do that. So what is gonna happen after bishop d7? White has several different opportunities. Well, they can go bishop takes g7, king takes g7, and pawn f4. Now we are trying to go e5. So what after pawn f4? There is white, black has to do something about e5, and suppose they go c5. Then white goes e5. And after e5, if black takes on d4, well, it's hard to recommend any better continuation. One other possibility may be d takes e. Actually, it's a little better possibility. C takes d is simply bad, because we play e takes f, followed by queen takes d4, queen takes d4, and it's totally winning for white. What should black do is to play in this position d takes e, f takes e, c takes d, e takes f, e takes f, queen takes d4. I would say white is better here. Oh, black can try bishop c6, you see, but this position is clearly better for white, even if white simply exchanges all those pieces. Rook takes d8, rook takes d8, and simply goes rook g1 now. You see, it's easier for white to organize play on a king side, on a queen side with the passed pawns than it is for black. So white is clearly better here. So this is just some of the ideas, and let's go quickly. There are several different ways black can play this position to get away from and to depart from the main line, and we have to be prepared. Now, how our thinking goes. Suppose we cannot cover obviously everything, every continuation black can choose. G6, knight f3, bishop g7, h3, castle, we go bishop e3 and knight c6. Now, here are our bases. Our bases are such that black plays knight c6, trying to increase control in the center with the knight. We want to eliminate that knight. After a6, when we take on c6 and he takes, we go queen d2. Our plan is obvious. We want to play bishop h6. We want to play actually after rook b8, castle. We want to play bishop to h6 with white. If black goes c5, that's what we just looked at. We going bishop h6 on the cd. We play knight takes d4. And now what we want to do, we want basically threatening knight c6. After bishop d7, we would want to take, and open the center where our pieces stand very nicely. Suppose black plays after bishop d7. Well, instead of bishop d7, they could play bishop takes h6 first. Queen takes h6. And suppose they play now bishop d7. But now our queen is on h6. Now we can create a lot of problems for black. We can go f4 followed by e5. And this is going to create some problems for black. So the idea, this is the ambitious approach for white on any kind of a knight c6 continuation in early stage of the game for black. Then again, there is a possibility of playing knight c6 idea for black in a different move order with a different idea. For example, we go e4, black goes g6, d4, d6. You see, black is delaying knight f6 for a reason. Knight c3. Now they can go knight c6, and if we go knight f3, now they can go, actually instead of knight c6, they can go bishop g7, knight f3, and now bishop g4. This happens a lot. Actually, I've seen it a lot of times played by black, and I don't think it's a very good idea. But my simple approach, there is a possibility of bishop c4 move, threatening bishop takes f7, and if black plays knight f6, then after e5, black is in a lot of trouble. Black may be lost here, actually, because on d takes e, we will play bishop takes f7 check. And on king takes f7, knight takes e5, winning the game. And what is for black to do here? After e5, if they take on f3, queen will take on f3, and now you see the b7 pawn is hanging. b7 pawn is hanging and knight is hanging. Also the f7 pawn is hanging. Black is losing here. So, and on knight d7, we will have the same bishop takes f7 shot. So this is bad. This is real bad, and this is one way to play bishop c4. But on bishop c4, you shouldn't expect black to play knight f6, which is almost losing move. They will probably go e6, which is okay, which is good position for white to play. But another idea I would recommend is to go bishop e3, and on knight c6 we will go queen d2. You see, if black wants to take on f3, they are welcome to, because now we are preparing to castle on the queen side. So black, suppose black goes e5. That's what he wants. Black wants to go white to go d5, and then they will have probably good position. Maybe after bishop takes f3, d takes c, and bishop g4, or maybe simply after knight e7. That's the type of position they would want to play. But we want to keep center open, so we will play bishop b5, e takes d. Actually, they should take the knight first. We take with the pawn, e takes d, and bishop takes d4. This position, this type of position is always better for white. Bishop takes d4, queen takes d4, and on queen f6, you can go even queen a4, followed by the castling on the long side on knight e7. We can castle long, and this position is not very good for white, because for black, because on queen takes f3, maybe knight d5, and black is experiencing serious problems. You can double check it yourself. They almost have to play king d8 now, and that's not a good position. So let's go back and see what can black do here. In this position, after we go bishop b5, we are getting to position after black goes bishop b5. Well, the way it goes from beginning, e4, g6. A lot of times it starts like this: e4, g6, d4, bishop g7. That's the most common move order. Knight c3, d6, knight f3, bishop g4, bishop e3. So we already decided our plan of knight d2 and knight c4 is not going to work, since black already played bishop g4. And when they go knight c6, we play queen d2 first on e5, bishop b5. Black did not succeed forcing d4 pawn to move, and now they have to give up the center after ed, or maybe bishop takes f3, gf, and now white is really threatening d5. So e takes d, bishop takes d4, gives white very good position. So that's how you approach. So you see, if black in early stage tries to white to play d5, early d5, when you play Pirc in this position, black plays bishop g4 and then puts more pressure on d-pawn, trying this d-pawn to move, which makes g7 bishop active. So what you do, you take the countermeasures. You're playing queen d2, and on e5 you go bishop b5. You see, you're attacking the piece that puts pressure on the white's center. This is just one way to think. Okay, black wants to put pressure on my center. I want to keep center open, because closing center. It's not what you want to do in Pirc in general. And so this is very comfortable way for white to get some advantage.